Well, good morning and welcome to another little video. This one is going to be about prayer beads, about using these mala beads or japa beads, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. These are, I find them particularly useful, or I used to find them particularly useful prior to A Course in Miracles when I was teaching myself to meditate. And then for a long time I didn't wear them, and at one point I even had just a little set of the Greek worry beads, which are the same thing. They're just like a little, you just sort of flick them around your thing as you go. But the idea of these beads is, and I guess if you're a student of A Course in Miracles, towards the later part of the workbook, you'll become more and more familiar with the idea of using a singular thought as a means for being able to learn to focus on keeping your mind still. And it's the same thing with prayer beads. There's 108 beads, and not that it's really really important, but you can look up the history of these beads, whatever, why there's 108, and I tend to just assume, which might make an ass out of me, and whatever the saying goes, that there's 108 because of the 108 snails that came to sit on Buddha's head during a rainstorm one day when he was meditating to protect him from the rain. And I don't know what good snails really would have done it. Don't mean to sound sacrilegious there, but surely if you're going to conjure up something to protect you from the rain, you might use a bird with some big wings or something like that. There's also the story of the seven cobras who fanned out their thing to protect him, and all that sort of thing. But 108 snails. So there's 108 beads anyway, getting away from all that. You got the guru bead, or the main bead there, which is the beginning, and it also comes around to the end. And very simply, you just hang it over your fingers like that, and with your thumb, just push down one bead at a time, and you just keep the movement simple. Don't fiddle with the beads too much. And as you do, your eyes are closed. As you do, you're simply repeating to yourself a little mantra or a focal thought that you're using to concentrate all your focus on, which might be something as simple as God is, or I am spirit, or I am not a body, I am free, I'm still as God. You can make it as long or as short as you like. I tend to prefer a shorter, just keep it simple. Right? God is. And you should do the beads in an unhurried kind of sense. It's not like it's a job or a chore that you've got to get through. It's something that you should feel, something that you should consider to be kind of sacred. It's part of your spiritual practice. And when I say spiritual, I mean the part of something that you're including in as a learning aid during that period of transition where you go from your identity of yourself as being a body doomed to die and all of this stuff to an understanding of yourself as being spirit with the body as the vessel. And that understanding has to become an abiding one, has to become one through which there is no compromise. And that can take a fair bit of effort. A few mosquitoes here again today. So all the way around until you get back to the guru bead again. And the thing with learning aids like this is that you don't want them to become religious. It's not something that you want to find yourself doing at the same time every day, relentlessly forever and ever and ever. It's like meditation or anything, prayer. It should be something that flows, that you feel drawn to do, right? So the spiritual discipline and spiritual work is specifically so that you break cycles of thinking, so that you remove yourself from or retrain yourself better from the cyclical way of thinking that the human consciousness sort of adopts. And the reason that the human consciousness likes to do things by the clock, with tradition, same thing every year, we celebrate this, we celebrate that. The reason that we try to structure all these things is because we falsely believe that it gives us a sense of security, gives us a sense of purpose, and gives us a sense of self. But all it does really is keeps us in the ignorance of ourself and keeps us in this kind of distracted environment wherein the determination to seek ye first the kingdom and then all else will come to you is kind of overlooked or forgotten about or not even considered. So in breaking free from cyclical thought, which is all egotistical, it's all temporal, right? We tend to have an aversion to doing that because we don't like to live our lives in this kind of spontaneous, go with the flow way. We tend to believe, as I said, if we can hold on to our traditions and our cycles of behavior and things that are all just so, and everything's just in a box, and we're all, sheeple or whatever it is people say we are these days, that we'll be fine. If we can just keep this little thing about our lives all intact, we'll have peace. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Just look in the history books. All right, so what we're attempting to do then is to bring our mind to a stillness out of, right, or to retrain our minds away from that round and round, same shit, different day mentality that denies or causes us to overlook the miraculous nature of life that we are and that is all around us. We tend to miss it because we're preoccupied with time and structuring our lives through time and what indicators and intervals in time mean to us, etc., etc., etc. When in actual fact we know damn well they don't mean anything other than the meaning we've given them. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to people that like to observe certain days of the year and things like that, but when you are attempting to pursue a different path, you have to let go of all those things. Right? It's like going from primary schooling to high school. You can't stay in primary school and get a high school education. You have to go from one to the other, and you have to make a choice. I'm either happy in the world with what I'm doing, I like the world, I'm enjoying my experience here, or maybe you feel suicidal like I used to, and you look for something else. You seek and you find, and all of a sudden a new path through life opens up, and it's completely different to anything you could have imagined. So don't allow, and things like this should be temporary by nature. I mean, I don't really use them anymore, but I do sometimes like to wear these beads because they remind me of purpose. Everything reminds me of my purpose, and but for me, these have served their purpose, wherein now my mind is able to access and stay in a place of singular thought like that, where my mind just opens and my body has this kind of reactive thing, and I have all sorts of physical flow on from that. But they're very handy and very useful, I find, or I did find. And I first came into contact through these with beads when I was going to the Haridham with the Hare Krishna community, probably about 2 to 3 years before I came into contact with the Course in Miracles, and at blah blah blah, Northern New South Wales. I can't think of the place now, but hello to everybody there. If anyone there is watching. But that was my first experience. I was given a set of beads in a little bag and told to chant the Hare Krishna, which did nothing for me at the time because it wasn't explained to me what the purpose of the beads was for particularly, or maybe I just couldn't hear what was explained to me in that time because I had ears to hear but couldn't hear. Who knows? It's always a learning curve and you go on and on. But things like this should be temporary, and any external, eventually you should just be able to rely on your own internal conscious effort and determination to still the mind like that, and allow a higher to lower mind, consciousness to higher conscious or higher mind connection to occur, which is seen in light within yourself. So using prayer beads, and in the idea of prayer beads too, prayer, I know, I guess, and I'm fall into this bracket also. When I first began the idea of looking at prayer as an idea of communication with God, I didn't even know if there was a God. I hadn't had an experience or anything like that. And my prayer was predominantly for things of the world. If only this would happen, God, I would be a better person, and I'll do this if you get me what I want, and all this kind of thing. But prayer is a ladder. Eventually you get to a point where you just realize that through an attitude of gratitude for a lesson being presented to help you see the Christ in a situation, or the divine in a situation, or an attitude of gratitude that just simply does see the divine in every situation, you come to a place of simple gratitude, like thank you, and that's the highest form of prayer there is. Thank you, thank you, thank you, in the recognition that whatever comes to you is meant to come to you because it's a learning, teaching opportunity, and if you don't see it as that, you're going to struggle with it. If you do see it as that, you may still struggle with it until you find the integrity to actually ask honestly and from the heart for the healing of the mind that believes in the separation schism presented through the lesson. But you may find many meditative practices that are helpful as you go along, but all of these things, like beads, should be temporary. So just a short one today. So I thought, being in lockdown, the whole world's in lockdown, it's easy enough to jump online and order a set of beads if you wanted to practice, or to jump online and indeed find an online meditation. And I did a little relaxation kind of meditation the other day, which if you scroll down, you'll find it in on my wall, not too far below this post, possibly. But there's a lot of good stuff online, and it's all very helpful. And every effort you make is accumulative. Every effort that you put in to your spiritual maturation, let's say, or to your process of transition, is an action of mind that is choosing for God or choosing for your higher self. Can you hear that? It doesn't matter what it looks like, but there is a necessity to to learn and to become aware that the ego corrupts everything. And if you turn it into a religious practice, if you turn these things, and you'll kind of know when the use by date of things is up for you anyway, and it's time to move on. And then you can ask within, all right, now what do I do? Where do I go from here? Whatever, and help me to see what's in front of me. And I've found myself in that prayer many times. But temporary by nature, right at the beginning, I would say, and by the time, if you're using Course in Miracles, there's not really any necessity for that, but I guess I'm clinging to these things as an idea of the past. I should probably just let it all go. So if anybody wants these beads, I'll send them to you. So that's about it. Work your way around and just try not to become distracted. Somebody may come into the room and be like, hey Dave, do you want to blah blah blah, or this, that and the other. Just ignore it. It's not rude, it's not ignorant, it's not arrogant, it's not any of that stuff. Just completely ignore and bring yourself back to your beads. Same with meditation. If you get disturbed during your meditation for any reason, that's perfect. Any disturbance helps you to become more determined. Any disturbance helps you to become more centered, more focused, which is why I've been told in India they build a lot of ashrams next to main roads and railway stations and things like that, so that it's noisy. In the West, we tend to have this idea of going off to the rainforest to find a quiet place to meditate, which is exactly what I did when I very first began my spiritual seeking many, many years ago. Pardon me. Well, that's it. I love you. Take it easy, and good luck in all your efforts. And you are supported. Remember that. Learn to make that connection with the Holy Spirit, or the spirit of wholeness within yourself, the spirit of love within yourself, and set inner peace as your only goal in life. Inner peace in every relationship, in every situation I have. And you're going to just simply ask yourself, if I just have inner peace, how happy will I be? Oh, and that's what I was going to mention too, in regards to the fearfulness of change, right? Human beings are fearful of change because the very first experience that we had, which is intrinsically still lodged in our consciousness, is the idea of separation, where we seemingly found ourselves in this illusion, or I find myself in this illusion, keeping it singular, separate from everyone and everything, which is terrifying, because all we'd ever known, or all I'd ever known, was eternity, which is the singular, all-encompassing nature of universal love, which is what I am, what we are together as the Christ, or that brotherhood. So we fear change, which is why we like to hold on to our traditions and rituals and religions and things that are the same every day. But in this world, in this physical place where everything's always changing, the seasons, the days, the weather, everything's changing here, relationships, whatever, learning to go with the flow and to let go of that tight, rigid structuring of cyclical behaviors and thinking and patterning and traditions and all of that sort of stuff, religion. It's important in learning to go with the flow. And in doing that, there's this kind of sense of feeling or sensing non-linear kind of things that are going on around you, the miraculous nature of life that sort of combines and embodies everything. And it's really a beautiful thing, but you have to kind of feel it and get a sense of it. And it's not religious, it's not repetitive, it happens in moments. It's hard to talk about because everyone's experience of it is so individual and so perfect and so well orchestrated. But it happens in moments, and there are moments where you think, yeah, I'm just going to sit and do my beads. That's what I feel like doing. That's what I feel called to do. That's what I feel I'm being guided to do. Rather than, it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, I've got to do my beads. It's not like that. Meditation is not like that. And I have this it's funny to me anyway, I have this funny story of a friend of mine who I once met many years ago, who was a Tibetan Buddhist. And he would spend 5 hours every morning in meditation, 5 hours. And I used to spend random periods in meditation, like from 5 minutes to an hour, and doing various different things, just when I felt like it. I wasn't in a set time zone and on by the clock or anything. And I asked him one day, I said, why do you meditate for 5 hours every day? And he goes, so I can have a better incarnation in my next life, which is a pretty straightforward Buddhist answer. And I said to him, how do you know that this isn't the next life that you were meditating for last time? And I looked at his life in general. He had a house in the hills, plenty of acreage with a beautiful view, very simple lifestyle. All he ever needed. It's just like, how much more could a person want? So he got kind of upset about that and asked me to leave. But everything's food for thought. Everything's always perfect, and whatever comes around. And if that's how you hear it, that's how you hear it. But let it be a flow. Let your life be a flow. Let yourself go with the flow. Try not to hold on to grievances, and be forgiving. Forgive yourself for your grievances. Nobody on this planet knows why the hell they're here, what they're doing, or anything like that. And we all, me included, make horrifically bad decisions about things that result in terribly awful effects, sometimes often far down the track, that we can't possibly foresee. And we look back and we go, why the fuck did I do that? Why, So, and you've got Adolf Hitler on one hand as an example of like a horrific action of mind that, something, and then Mother Teresa on the other hand. Neither of these states are where you're looking at to be as an idea of spiritual transition, but bring them together to include it in and bring them together to the here and now where I am. right? And I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of people, me included, used to look out for role models, Gandhi and Jesus and Osho and different people like that, and Krishna and Buddha. And I used to think, I want to be like that. In the end, I just had to be myself by including what I thought that was in with what I didn't want to be like. Including everything in, so that I was one with everything on earth, as in eternity. The truth is, I am one with everything, and that never changes. What God creates cannot be corrupted, cannot be changed, but the form can appear different. But I'm still one with everything here. God's will is all pervading here on earth as it is in heaven. But I can't see it whilst I determine to have my own idea of what God's will ought to look like by thinking these things are good and these things are bad. It's like, no, this is a schism. This is a mistake that I find myself in, which salvation is relieving me from the necessity to participate in consciously. It's much like being shipwrecked. Right? Salvation is a rescue. We're being rescued from a dimension or a realm or a perspective of self that doesn't actually exist. It's like a dream or an illusion. So, all right, well, I've got to go. Someone's ringing the phone. I don't know who that is, but might be my water tank delivery man for today. All right, love you. Peace.